What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Thanks for coming over to the DFS 5-pack. We're going to talk kind of Draftkings MLB DFS strategy. It's something that, Matt, you're obviously pretty good at. Took down a really, really nice tournament last night with total winnings of 50,000. And what was your total entry fee on the night?
The total entry fee was $666. So just to touch on that for a second. So obviously I play a little heavier. There's no denying that. I entered $666. But that's not what I normally enter. If I like a slate, which I liked yesterday and I started to like it more and more, I enter a little bit bigger, which was the case last night. Now, have I entered bigger than I did last night? Sure. But do I enter smaller usually? Yes. Just happened that last night on a night I felt good. It happened to work out. So it's something that I talk about all the time. Know the slate you get into. I feel a lot better when I lose a slate that I really liked than when I lose a slate that I'm forcing. Obviously, that happens all the time, and you touch on that a lot. It's kind of just the mental grind. DFS can really get to you.
Yeah, you like to refer to it as you're seeing the slate really clear, or there's a lot of clarity on the slate for you. And in baseball specifically, let me break out this lineup for everybody real quick and share this. It's got to start for you when you feel really comfortable with the starting pitching. And last night, we were both kind of looking at the same two pitchers, and you had a lot of conviction on David Price and Felix Pena as the 1-2 combo last night. And it becomes easier when you can feel comfortable. Now, does it always work out? No, of course not. But, you were spot on these guys last night. They gave you a solid base to, set your pitching around. And that just makes this game so much easier because pitching is so volatile.
Pitching is so volatile. I actually didn't feel as great about the pitchers as I had the night before, but because we've had some success and we've talked about that, felt probably better. Well, definitely felt better than I would have if we were in a little bit of a cold streak. Felt really good about Price. And while Pena was, I thought was a little trappy, you kind of had turned that around on me, and there really wasn't anywhere else to go. And it was the clear way to go. So it felt really good to just lock those two pitchers in and then, play around with the other lineups.
Great. And just so everybody knows, you're not one of those guys who does 150 max entry lineups. You're typically, they say you took away since the MLB entries are going down this late in the year, they took away the tournament you usually play, which is the $150 buy-in 3 entry max. And you had to play something a little bit differently that had more entries than just the 3, but you still only set 3 lineups. And I think a lot of people feel like the only way to win big money is to max enter things like that. You don't feel the big multi-entry tournaments. You're more about the 3 entry max or the single entries.
Definitely. And you've really harped that on me, the 3 entry, making a core and then going off that. I didn't like that this tournament was a multi-entry tournament, but I've had some success in those before. Again, I don't recommend people doing those, especially beginners, but I know what I'm doing. I felt a lot of conviction with the offense to pair with my pitchers. And I knew that it wasn't going to be an offense that was going to be so high owned that I'd have to fight through a lot of other lineups. So if the Angels, like they did, went off, that I was going to be in a good spot. I might not have won it with, a lot of other entries in there, but clearly I made my lineup different and good enough to take it down, which is difficult to do on those big tournaments. There's no doubt about it.
All right. So you are really good at being convicted in the sense that you're willing to take it on the chin a couple days because you basically only go contrarian. And just for all the viewers know, you barely touch cash games ever. Your bread and butter is MLB DFS GPPs because you want to be different. You want to think outside the box. You don't want to just ride chalk because, as you preach in baseball all the time, just because Mike Trout is the play on paper, it doesn't mean Trout's going to have a good day. Point in case, you liked the Angels last night, but your lineup that made all the money was the one where you skipped Mike Trout and you had a guy in there like Francisco Arcia who goes off for 37 points at 1% ownership. Now, that doesn't happen a lot, but when it does, that's how you really get to the top of the pack.
And that's the crazy thing about it. So in our write-up, I love the Angels yesterday, and obviously my 2 favorite Angels were Trout and Ohtani. And in the three lineups I made, 2 of them had Trout and Ohtani. But and they had other Angels, Trout, Ohtani, and Fletcher. Those were the 3 main guys in my other 2 lineups. Fletcher fit with the price. So in this lineup, I wanted to be different. I wanted to get the guys I didn't use in the other 2 lineups: Calhoun, Upton, Simmons. I used Fernandez everywhere because of the price. And then lastly, it was Arcia. So before the slate started, I had all 3 of my lineups with Butera at catcher. because he was only 2.5K. But when I stack a team like the Angels, I want exposure to every single player. We've talked about that before, and this is the reason why right here. There is no better example than right here. Arcia is not a good player, but I like the Angels stack a lot. And when I was looking at my lineups, I thought about him, and I was worried that if he goes off and I don't have him, I will kick myself because it's $1,000 more, and Butera is not good. He might not do anything. So I finagled my lineup a little bit. I actually took Ohtani out of this lineup and changed it to Gallo, who I had told you I had a nice feeling about. Ended up working out really well. That does not always happen. Matter of fact, it hardly ever happens. But it just goes to show you that a lot of times you just got to go with your gut.
Yeah. So again, MLB, GPP, DFS is kind of, like you said, it's your strong suit. It's what you're really good at because you have a affinity for being different. And that could be harder in other sports. But in baseball, I talked about a tweet that we recorded the other day from DFS Goat, from some of you guys who follow him, where he says, if you just skip the chalk in baseball every single night, come year's end, you're going to be profitable. Now, it's a long season in baseball, and you fully admit there's been weeks, even, weeks in a row where you've really taken it on the chin, but you don't lose the courage of your convictions, and you don't start chasing chalk just to see green. You continue to play lower owned guys and go with the lower owned stacks because you're willing to eat it on the nights when the chalk goes off, knowing that when it doesn't go off, like this night alone covers your whole season of buy-ins. So those other 3 or 4 really big days that you've had, that's where your profit really comes in. And there's other days where, like, you know what it is, where like maybe you do your 3 entry max, maybe you don't make money, but you only lose part of your buy-in or you break even or something like that. Like your profit really comes down to about 4 or 5 nights a year.
Yeah, you know what? I started talking over you because I think we froze, so sorry about that. But I wanted to just touch on the point you made about sticking to your ways, because we talk about this all the time, man. There's a lot of ways to play this game. You play different than I do. You can't compare me and you because our styles are so different, which is what makes us such a good team. But there's people who like to multi-enter. There's people who like to play tournaments like me. There's people who like to play triple ups. It doesn't matter how you like to play, or whatever way you like to skin the cat. You got to stick to the way that you're good at. Like you said, I get into bad ruts, of course, when I play like this, because sometimes the chalk is just better and performs, or sometimes where I go doesn't work. But if I start changing my ways and start riding chalk, then that's a losing proposition for me. So you really, you have to believe in what you're doing. And when you start not believing in it, you got to take a step back.
It's a hard thing to do. I've struggled with it in the past. I know a lot of other players have, where if you do like to play contrarian, specifically, within baseball, and let's say you fade Coors, you had one piece of Coors last night, happened to be the good piece of Coors. But when you fade Coors and it goes off, you're like, man, I'm so stupid. I shouldn't have done that. It was such a good place. I can't believe I went contrarian. Well, that's a slate where if you kind of like Coors, you more or less sit that slate out. You'll play, but you'll play for lesser money or potentially even sit out the slate completely. You look for spots where you think the chalk will fail.
Yeah, it's a great point. And like you said, you have to be willing to eat it. I mean, there's so many times, more often than not, we come on here and I might have been wrong on what I said the day before. But it's, days like this that you have to take advantage of. And that just goes to what you always talk about. I make no qualms about that. I play for pretty big money. It's not always like this every day. But if you're going to play like that, the pressure mounts and you have to be able to take a tournament down occasionally, not all the time. But DK money goes quick when you're playing big money tournaments like this, real quick, unless you're consistently in the green. And we both know it. It's really, really hard to stay consistently in the green in these tournaments.
Definitely, because you're playing with a lot of other good players. And there's a lot of times where the competition is stiff. There's a lot of people out there like us giving information. So even people who don't have time to pay attention to it have access to guys who can give them quality information. There's a lot of shit services out there too. But, we believe in ourselves, but there's a lot of other good people out there giving good advice, which really just strengthens the field and strengthens everybody playing this game. It's not an easy game. If it was an easy game, we wouldn't be on YouTube giving advice. We would just be sitting there playing ourselves and just, raking in the money like that. It's a tough game, and you got to be willing to stick with it when the times are down. It's really, really easy when you've had a bunch of bad days or even a couple of bad weeks in a row to all of a sudden want to switch it up and play double ups and play like the higher owned guys and things like that. But you're strong in your convictions on this. And when things aren't going well, it'll turn. In about once a month, this is the biggest, but you've had the $5,000, $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 wins. But very rarely do people bring up, the rough weeks, the weeks where you drop $2,000 or something like that. And it's not as much fun or sexy to talk about, but the big day is coming as long as you stay true to what you do.
Most definitely. It's definitely great to bring up. I will get into all that stuff always. People don't want to hear about the losses, and we're a provider, so it's tough for us to talk about that. But I talk to you about it all the time. The stretches can get bad. Takes a win like this, not necessarily like this, but a win or a top 5 finish to, really stay believing in what you do, because it can get tough. And to be honest, and I've said this to you before, and I'll just touch on this here because it's important to know that, I love DFS more than anyone, especially baseball tournaments. I'm excited for, the baseball season to wind down. I'm really, last week was, I don't think chalk will be like that always in NFL, obviously, and I like being different, but I kind of like the cash game fight, as opposed to just, these big field tournaments. And, it's just going to be nice. It's going to be nice to have a break. I'm not going to lie.
That's the big difference between football and baseball. Chalk succeeds at a significantly higher ratio in football. So fading chalk in football is tough. You usually only need to be different in 1 to 2 spots, where in baseball, it's so stack oriented. And the big difference is in football, there's 16 games in a regular season. There aren't a lot of games where teams just don't show up, unless you're talking about like bad teams like the Buffalo Bills, for example. Good teams or teams that are mediocre that are trying to fight for the playoffs, they usually only have 1 to 2 clunkers per year. Whereas in baseball, even good teams like the Boston Red Sox, the Houston Astros, there are 30, 40 games a year where they just don't play that well because it is a long damn season. And finding those times when the big offenses don't show up, it can be really key to hitting these big scores. It's not an easy thing to do.
Like, I don't even know the equivalent of a football slate of Francisco Arcia being the highest scoring hitter on this slate. I can't even think of an example of a football player. You know what I mean?
No, I can't think of one either, where a guy who's dirt cheap goes out and over succeeds the Ezekiel Elliott's, Le'Veon Bell's, David Johnson's of the world, whatever it might be. But we got some better examples would be like Todd Gurley, since he's actually playing right now. That just doesn't happen. You know what I mean? Like Francisco Arcia outscored Mike Trout last night by 30-some points. Like that just isn't going to happen in football. There aren't weeks where Joe Nobody outscores Todd Gurley. It's not equivalent.
So just to touch on something you said, because I think it's important to bring up also. So when you said a dirt cheap Arcia, he wasn't dirt cheap. And I think that's important to bring up. He was 3,500, which is way too expensive, which is part of the reason why no one owned him. Now, I didn't want to pay 3,500 for him. He was like 0 for his last 17. But like I said, I wanted that piece of the stack, and I knew that he would be a guy that everyone left out of the stack because he was too expensive. And as I always say, pricing really doesn't matter in baseball.
Well, actually, Matt, one other person played him, so not everybody skipped him.
Right?
But yeah, we kind of get the point. There was only one other guy with Arcia in there, and I can give a good example to some of our longtime customers. This is even a couple years before you came around. There was a night, man, this might have been 3 years ago, where we needed some cap space. We liked our lineups outside of it, and we went hard on J.J. Hardy of the Baltimore Orioles because he was barely over min pricing. Now, we knew darn well that J.J. Hardy was not a very good baseball player anymore, but he got real lucky. He had a couple of home runs right down the right field line in Boston. Both of them hooked right around the pesky pole, which is tough for right-handers to do. And to do it twice in the game was just weird. But when a guy like that, it was like 1.2% owned, goes off, everybody was winning GPPs that night. You don't get a lot of those per year, but when you get it, man, can you take advantage of something like that? And it's hard, I think, for a lot of people, especially newer people to MLB DFS, to want to take chances like that, because more often than not, they're not going to succeed. But when they do succeed, you made like 100 times your buy-in, a little less than that, more like 90 times your buy-in last night. So that could cover you for 3 months of baseball. You don't have to hit it all the time. You just got to hit it every once in a while in order to get that profit going.
Definitely. It's still amazing to me, like a guy like Arcia. I mean, this is just the perfect example of what we always talk about. Like, this guy might not even be in the majors for that long. He's not good, but yet he scored the most points on the slate. And the guy who was the highest owned angel on my team, well, right after Hernandez, got a 0 in Calhoun. So, I mean, baseball is weird. It's really hard to even put into words how really volatile and crazy it can be. And again, you'll have some slates where the chalk works out, sure. Just have to eat those on the chin when you play like this.
Yeah, it happens. Anybody who tells you they win every single night is lying their ass off. I mean, it doesn't exist out there. This is a game where we're trying to manage luck. We're trying to control other players. It's really
There's one person I think might win every day, and it's this Sean Zahn, who is every day up on that top of the leaderboard. But I'm just making a joke. Your point's well taken.
All right. I don't really know who that is. I'll take your word on it. You play in different tournaments than I do, so you're going to know better than I will. So that is that. It's a damn difficult game, though, and staying disciplined and staying true to what you believe and what works for you is a tough thing to do, because when you eat it on the chin a bunch of days in a row, it is so easy to try to default to chalk just in kind of that desperation mode to see green. For anybody else who's ever done sales, because I'm a career salesperson prior to this, you did some sales prior to this, it's that desperation mode, and you could hear it when people hadn't made a sale in a while, where they're just like so desperate to get anything going, and it's usually not the way that things are going to work out for you. So another point I want to talk about, and you kind of started to allude to this, is when you like a team and you're stacking them, sometimes how many times this year, when you guys think about it, have you liked the Boston Red Sox and you stacked bets in Benintendi or bets in JD, and they give you a total of 12 points, but it's Brock Holt and Jackie Bradley Jr. at the bottom of the lineup are the guys that do the damage. And that's kind of what you did last night. You set two lineups based around the high-priced Angels, and then in your other lineup, you pivoted to high-priced guys like Nolan and Witt and played the lower-cost Angels guys like, Upton wasn't cheap, but he was cheaper. Simmons wasn't cheap, but he was cheaper. Fernandez and Arcia, who did the damage.
Exactly. It's a great point. I wanted to have exposure from all angles of the Angels because I really liked them last night. I felt really good about them. They were in a nice breakout spot. They ended up breaking out. The Jose Fernandez home run. Well, when Justin Upton tripled right after we called him out, I felt like things might be going good, and then it just continued to go on from there. And then one other thing, which I know you'll like, is I used three guys I think that batted either sixth or lower, which just goes to show you in cash games that's not recommended, but in tournaments, I don't care where they bat as long as they're in a good spot for power upside.
Right. In cash games, you want as many at-bats as you can get. And it's kind of what we preach about in football. Opportunities for success will long-term equal success. And another at-bat just gives you another opportunity to get points. And that's what a lot of people feel. So in the GPP mold, the lower guys in the lineup are very rarely going to be popular unless they're like super cheap and people are using them for cap space. But sometimes it is the bottom half of the lineup that goes off. And most people aren't playing those guys. So when Fernandez and Arcia combine for 53 points and Andrelton Simmons throws in another 17 at sub 5% ownership, like you're different than the crowd. And there is such a power to being different in baseball, which is a little different than the other sports, because in football and basketball, chalk just succeeds at a significantly higher ratio. You know what I mean? Like when Russell Westbrook plays the Suns, for him not to succeed, it's got to be a blowout or foul trouble or an ejection. And that doesn't happen most of the time. In baseball, Mike Trout, the best player in the world, only gets a hit 3 out of 10 times.
Like that, yeah, it's really hard to even put into words how different they are. Because a night where Arcia can be by far the best player, or all these guys score higher than Mike Trout. It's bizarre. It's exactly like how I like to play. I am looking forward to the break. I like the grind that's NFL. You've really got me in the cash game mold, especially since you basically just give me your lineups. So that's fun. Baseball GPPs, in my opinion, and obviously there's a lot of ways to do it, like you got to be different, and you can be pretty much as different as you want here. It just doesn't, names and pricing are just very overvalued in baseball, as evidenced by a lot of the guys that went off here. I don't remember if I had any money left over here. I don't believe I did, but that's just how it worked out last night.
Right. And you can't stress enough how important it is to understand that. And we had a customer of ours, Kevin, and Kevin hit us with a Facebook message a couple of weeks back saying that like he finally got it. Like you had talked him into the Orioles one night a few weeks ago, and the Orioles went off at really low ownership. He won a bunch of money. He's like, it just was never clicking with me all year. It is so hard to press submit on a guy like Arcia at, you talk about that price when damn well he is not the best play on paper. It is so hard to get that out of your mind. I struggle with it daily. You're better at that than I am, clearly, about just being like, yeah, it's not the best play on paper, But I usually don't want the best play on paper because that's where everybody's going. I want the path of least resistance. And while it's not the path of least resistance to points, it's the path of least resistance to winning big.
Exactly, because you just have to fight through so many less people. And that's a great way to put it, because when I was looking at my lineups last night, Arcia, like I mentioned, was too expensive at 3.5. But when I thought about the Angel stack, I thought they might even be a little higher owned than they were. So I was surprised to see them at, well, I guess the Trout and Otanis were, but but I knew that, like I said, that Arcia, because he was too high, was just going to be so, left out of the stack everywhere. When you had a guy like Butera at 2.5, which is why I had Butera in all my lineups. But then I realized that like the $1,000 difference between them is so much smaller than the 20% difference in ownership between them.
That's a great way to put it, because I was another guy. I played Butera last night in my one lineup that I did, solely because he was dirt cheap. And I remember looking at Arcia because, I had some Angels exposure as well. Not like you did, but it was a team that we both had some confidence would put up some runs last night. And I remember thinking the same thing, like, I'm not playing Arcia at 3,500 when I can pay down to Drew Butera for $1,000 less, and this will help me get another good offensive player in my lineup. Ultimately, clearly Arcia was the guy, but I'm looking at it from like your average MLB DFS player. Like, it is difficult to rationalize that in your mind.
It really is. That's a great way to put it. For some reason, it's easier for me to do. Maybe it's because I have like a bettors mentality. I'm used to having action, and I like being contrarian. I almost like being contrarian too much. Both you and my dad are always on me about how I like to be contrarian too much. So now it's just like, I feel like that's my mantra. And really, and I know you've harped this into me, it's really only works like this in baseball. Because like in basketball, it works. And, my biggest night was when I used the Magic and Aaron Gordon, who was similar ownership as these guys. But the difference is Aaron Gordon is like a fringe NBA star. Francisco Arcia is like a fringe MLB player.
Mm-hmm. It is a big difference. And like you've talked about, like this year for football and basketball, you want to try to specifically not be as contrarian because you feel like it worked to your detriment more often than it helped. And you only want to be contrarian once or twice in the lineup. You don't need a full 8-man NBA lineup of guys trying to be different when you pick your one or two spots where maybe you get a guy at sub 10% ownership that can really help you win. Because baseball has always been your thing. It's been your favorite sport. I know it's your favorite sport, and it's been the one that you've always had the most success on. That trying to implement the same strategy in football and baseball, NFL, there's just different sports. Purely by the number of games. And the other thing is, it is damn hard to hit a round ball with a round bat. So no matter how many times we say this, it holds to be true. Mike Trout, Mookie Betts, whoever you want to take a look at, these are the best baseball players in the world, but they still only succeed at about a 30% clip. Whereas Todd Gurley this year in football, he's going to have nice days at well over a 30% clip.
That's a great way to put it. Yeah, it's hard to even put into words. We can stress it so much, and then you just have to really conceptualize it yourself. I know that you've really started to do that, but you like baseball GPPs, but your thing is just the cash game NFL and NBA. I'll put the NBA cash game pretty much right in there with it. It's different because it's every day, and it's still more volatile than the NFL because there's many more games, but still more of a cash game sport probably. It's kind of in the middle, which is fun. But that's why, we kind of have such a good working relationship, and why it's such a good team, and why, not to plug ourselves too hard, but we can offer so much to whatever type of format you want to play. Clearly we have success in GPPs. Clearly we have success in cash games. So whatever you want to play, we're here to offer it to you. And again, that only goes with our Facebook groups and all that other fun stuff.
Exactly. We're just going to play differently. And you could, just as people, you're more of an up and down. I'm more, really just steady Eddie, but even like it translates to our games, the way that we play. Like I almost never make deposits on Draftkings. Don't have to. I don't withdraw a ton either because I don't play for huge money. I have to grind out, my withdrawals and stuff like that. During NFL, it's pretty easy because it's usually profit every single week. But, even throughout the basketball season, I have to grind out withdrawals. Whereas you're the one, you haven't done it yet, but later on today, I'm assuming you're going to make a really, really big withdrawal from Draftkings. In fact, I know that you are because your wife wouldn't let you do it otherwise. But you're going to make more deposits. You're going to make more withdrawals. It's going to be up and down. My game is much more boring. And if you watch the movie Rounders, I'm a lot more like Kanish. It is not very exciting, but it's the way I feel comfortable.
I don't know about right now because baseball, like I said, it's fading out. This is like a good time to kind of take a big step back. But normally, if this was like in the middle of baseball, I would venture to say even after my big withdrawal, I would still be depositing before you. My next deposit would still be before yours if it was in the middle of baseball. That might not be the case if I hit another GPP, but let's say I, went a week without winning. You know what I mean? Then that would definitely be the case.
I'll go the first week of NFL to, the end of NBA season, and it's very possible I'll never have to deposit money into my DraftKings account. Now, I'm not taking out buco bucks. It's not like I got monster money coming in or anything like that. It's a lot of days of, small wins, throwing a few small losses. Eventually, you make a withdrawal every once in a while, but it's not a major swing. Whereas like this for you, this is going to be a big ass withdrawal you make later today. It's going to be fun. You're going to have a good time. I'll, to wear it on my sleeve. I'm very, very jealous because I've never experienced any kind of winnings like this. I've had some nice days, but nothing in this realm.
Yeah. I don't know. You know me, I always feel a little bad like that because obviously I would be jealous too. So it's one thing that sucks, but it's okay because I'm going to hook you up.
Yeah. I'm also not sending you money. You know what I mean? Like when you're making your deposits or anything like that. So again, it's taking the up and down portion. It can weigh on you and it can weigh on a lot of people. To have to understand.
That's a great point. You have to be willing to understand it. And obviously, clearly by me saying that I want to take a step back and I'm excited for football cash games, I can withstand it. And I've clearly done that. But it's also nice to not have that pressure.
And again, I want to bring up, because I think this is, we try to incorporate the human element into our shows because we think it's something that not a lot of the other shows talk about. And it is really natural for gamblers to talk about their big wins and then forget about them in their own mind. You know what I mean? Whereas they don't like to talk about their big losses, but in their mind, it's always weighing on them. So I can think about a time I got a family friend who is a truly degenerate, big time gambler. He's decent at it. So it's not like he's wasting a lot of money, but he'll always talk about his big days, winning, $5 grand, 10 grand and stuff like that, going out to Vegas and winning, $20,000 in a poker tournament and things like that. And it's great and it's fun stories. But then our brother and me, he never talks about the fact that he went out to Vegas last week and lost $30,000 and is, shitting himself at home right now. Those stories never come up, but it's important that we remember most people who have big wins also have big losses, and the flip side works as well.
It's true here. I think I've done a good job of balancing it, but I would be a liar if I said that wasn't, if I didn't experience my share of losses too. You know what I mean? That's what happens when you play big. I'm trying to fine tune my game even more, so that doesn't happen as much, which is why I want to be more picky on slates. But I also still feel like I'm clearly not new enough, but I'm still getting better. And I think everyone can still get better. And I'm big on that, as I'm still learning every day. So I just think my game's still getting better.
And that's the way it should be. I mean, that's how you become better at things, is you work on it each and every single day. We did the cash lineup, I did the cash lineup review on Monday. And if you're not going back on bad days or good days, the mediocre days, you don't really have to spend a lot of time on it. But going back and just even in your own mind, thinking about why it is you lost or won that day. What did you do well? What could you have improved upon? Where did you make a mistake? Were you unlucky or were you bad? And we hit on it all weekend long. Me and a couple other, good NFL DFS players we talked to, a couple of us faded James Conner, and have to look at yourself on Monday and be like, that was just wrong. It was wrong. You weren't unlucky. You just were wrong on how they were going to utilize them. And it didn't work for you. So admit that it was a mistake and try not to make that mistake again.
Yeah, agreed. You really can't. You got to be able to have a little bit of thicker skin in this. I don't have really thick skin, so it's tough for me in some ways. But I mean, you do, so that helps you a lot.
Yeah, and again, it's hard for human beings to admit when they make mistakes. It's just some people are better than others. But as a human being, we're not naturally conditioned to want to accept the fact that we have flaws and accept the fact that we can do things that are wrong. And you always want to feel like you're a little bit unlucky. And the truth of the matter is we all make mistakes all the time. So be willing to be okay with that, but try to improve upon that. You should be analyzing your lineups the next day and not spending hours on it or anything like that, but be like, man, I thought about this. I should have done this differently. Like, for example, if you hadn't played Arcia last night, you would be sitting here the next day like, it's what I always do, and I skipped them. Why wasn't I true to my conviction?
There's the Arcia, which I changed right before, and then I couldn't decide between Gallo and Odor. Like at the end, I had a feeling about Gallo. And the difference there, like when you talk about in tournaments like this is where like the few points do matter. So I won it by like 10, but I think Gallo got like 14 more than Odor. I mean, it's like a $30,000 difference. That's real.
Gallo had the 14. Did Odor do anything? I don't really remember.
I don't think he did anything.
So if Odor grabs the 0 and you switch Whit Merrifield to the outfield because of his dual flexibility, you're in second place now. No, don't get me wrong. 20 grand is still a great day, and anybody in their right mind is going to be happy to win that. But $30,000 more is a big freaking difference.
Pressure is the wrong word, but as this was winding down last night, so if you remember the last time when I had used the Angels in that day slate, I was in first for a while and, ended up getting knocked out because Seattle scored. And I was really happy with second, but I also that was a significant amount to lose. So almost in the back of my mind in this one, I was like, man, if I take second again, that'll be nice, but it's leaving a lot of money on the table. And I was thinking about what we always talk about, how you got to be able to get to the top. Now, second is getting to the top, but it's still a long way away from first with how they price these contests out.
Exactly. And I wasn't even thinking about it, but all of a sudden, Mr. All-In King 17 right there in second place. Imagine how his heart fell out of his chest when he saw Arcia hit that home run. Second place is great, but that was a $30,000 loss for that young man or old man or young woman or whoever he is. I don't know him, obviously. And it kind of almost feel bad for him because we've all been in that spot. Well, most of us have been in that spot before where you're up at the top of a GPP and the games are winding down and somebody does that thing that pushes you into second or third or whatever it might be. And it's really disheartening.
I feel bad. I do feel bad for him. You know me, I'm all in my feelings anyway. So I don't know that person, so it's hard for me to feel bad. But yeah, I have empathy for that person because to be in those shoes, well, obviously sucking is the wrong word because they took home $20K. It's a bad feeling when you think you're about to win $50K. And that's another reason why sometimes, and obviously when I know what's going on like this, I'm not going to go to sleep. But that's why also, and you asked me, how do I go to sleep? I could not handle that. Like if that were me, I would be so pissed. And that's a bad way to feel if you win $20K.
Definitely. And I think about 2 weeks ago, I really liked the slate. And I actually played cash games that night in MLB. And I played more than I normally do because I don't really play for a lot of money when it comes to MLB. And I got the very last place in one of the larger single entry double ups I played, like 300th place. And the 300th was the last one they cashed. And I remember watching those last 3 at bats, just kind of ready to I was so this is fun. This is exciting. And then just to have that win come through felt such a good feeling. And now I'm thinking about what had happened if somebody had gotten a single and knocked me out. Now I'm multiplying it by about 8 million and thinking of what that poor young man went through last night, because that was a big home run to witness. Now, great for you, but I do kind of feel bad for that guy. Like that, I'm trying to envision myself in that pain that would have gone through your mind.
Especially with who did it. I mean,
yeah, exactly. Like freaking Arcia homers again. You got to be kidding me.
Right. I mean, I went to lie down after our videos and it was late at that point. It was 12 Eastern, 12:30, somewhere around there. So I was doing well, but right when I lied down, Arcia hit the first home run. And I was like, okay. I was in 10th place, which is nice. And I told you before that I was the guy creeping in the tournament with innings left when no one else had anything left, which was a little surprising. No one else had Angels, but I took it. Then when Gallo homered, I mean, obviously, because I was messaging you, but to put me in third place, I knew I was going to get the Pena win. I thought Pena was going to still come out. Well, no, at that point, I knew he wasn't coming out, but I mean, it was real. The tilt was real. I was counting down my at-bats. I couldn't believe when Arcia did that. I'm speechless, which is rare. I'm speechless.
Yeah, for those of you who he was truly kind of freaking out. I was I told you guys, I was watching Sopranos and we did 13 videos yesterday, so I needed to lie down to stretch out my back, and I was lying on the floor trying to work on my old man body. And all of a sudden, I hear my Facebook Messenger go ding, ding, ding 30 times in a row. I'm like, oh boy, something happened to Bellman. He's freaking out over there right now. And I come up there and you're like, Gallo home run. And I'm like, all right, I got to turn this game on because I'm going to be getting messages from this young guy over and over and over again. So I got to be here to kind of live through this with you.
It's another point that you say that you believe more than me, but how could I not after last night? So in my lineup last night, if you notice, all the players, 6 of the players were in that late game. The other 2, Merrifield and Arenado, obviously studs. And one of my pitchers was in the late game. So while people like to spread it out, and while I usually, if I have my cake and eat it too, would spread it out, it makes no difference when your players play, simply because you just have to look at it like you're not watching Draftkings.
It doesn't make any difference. And it's kind of like the way people freak out at a blackjack table. They're like, oh, you took our bus card. You don't know what card is underneath. Maybe he helped you. And if anybody can remember the scene from the show Entourage, and that guy split it, and that was the reason they won, him and Ari won whatever it was, $1 million on that hand. Like, you don't know. You can't control it. It doesn't matter if your guys are early, in the middle, or late. It could be more fun for your viewing. I get that. That part is legitimate, but it's how far as the way they score. It doesn't matter when they play.
We disagree about the blackjack, but we've been over this before. But that's okay. We won't get into that now. But yeah, I agree with you. Yeah, this is a fun day. I mean, I won't forget, this day or last night for a long time, obviously. And as I mentioned before, hoping to do some things with this to help the 5-pack, and excited about moving forward. Because stuff like this doesn't happen all the time.
No, again, and that's what when we make these videos, I know ultimately we're going to get some dislikes on YouTube because some get jealous and they don't want to hear it. And, they think like this game's rigged and we're just here talking about it. It's not. This can happen. We're just two regular dudes who play this stuff.
Right.
Just started, there was no production value on this video, right? I'm just sitting in my freaking living room right now talking to you with a blank wall behind me. Like, there isn't some kind of fancy system here or anything like that. You can win playing this game. It's not easy. It's not rigged or anything like that. And you hear about that stuff all the time. You just continue to get better, work on your game. If you would like to sign up to be a member of the DFS 5-pack, we'd love to have you. You focus on MLB GPPs. A lot of these days now, you'll kind of do both of the write-ups, and I'll focus on, more videos and marketing and stuff like that. But it's a team. We do our best to try to help you. We basically play who we talk about on a day in and day out basis. Now, we reserve the right to pivot because the write-up comes out 2 hours before lock, and, some new information can come out. But there's a million services out there. A lot of them suck. There's a lot of other good ones as well. We are just here every single day trying to do our best to help you guys win. And, some days it's great. Other days it isn't. Obviously, last night was good. We've had a bunch of customers have some good wins this week. Next week may not be that way.
No, and another point that I want to make that you've harped on a lot, that you've really implemented in me. A lot of people not last night because most people were sleeping, but this morning I woke up to, what are you going to do today? You want all that money? Like, what are you going to do? And I'm like, what am I going to do? Like, what do you mean? What am I going to do? I'm going to do what I do every day. And that's what I look forward to doing every day. Money's not going to change who I am. And I love what I do. I love this. I wouldn't have it any other way. I know it might take me a little bit too long to get ready in the morning, but aside from that, I really wouldn't. I couldn't see myself doing anything else. I love this, and no tournament win or anything like that is going to change how I feel about that, which is just a testament to what you talk about and doing what you love.
Yeah, I can't say it enough times, guys. Especially for the younger viewers out there, man. If there's something you're really into, try to make that your life. And you give an example of a girl I went to college with, and she used to own her own law firm. I assume most people who own their own law firm making at least a little bit of money. And every Facebook, Instagram post was all complaining about emails and how stressful life is. And a couple of years ago, she sold her law firm, or even just got out of it. I don't really know. I don't talk to her all the time. But now she teaches yoga, which I'm willing to guess that the discrepancy between owning your own law firm and teaching yoga is a big financial difference. But everything about her social media presence now is happy and positive. It's pictures with her kids. I'm so happy to wake up this morning and be able to go take my kids here and go do this. And while they don't have the things that maybe they had before, it's possible. I don't know. But the happiness that goes along with not going to do something you hate all day.
Yeah, I'm so with you on that. I mean, money, it's really true. Money can't buy happiness. It really can't. And like you said, there's no production on this. I mean, I'm in my office, which is one of our extra bedrooms turned into an office, and I love it. I love the grind that we do, and makes you appreciate it. A night like that, it feels validating for me because, like you said, I'm the tournament GPP guy. But as you'll also say, a tournament win on any given night is much more it's skill in the long haul. But on that night, you need a lot of luck, which I did. As I talked about with using Gallo over Ordor. One more piece, which I didn't even tell you about, the Upton triple. Crushed the line drive triple. It was right after I said something about Upton hitting multi-home runs last night too, which he didn't do. Guy dove in left field for it. He just missed it. Now, it was a line drive and it was a triple, but he just missed it. If he makes that catch, I mean, not only does it take those points away, it changes the complexion of the game. Who knows what happens after that? You don't look at that stuff all the time. And obviously, if I had lost, I wouldn't be analyzing this right now. But you have to appreciate those things. And I feel that's one of my strong suits. I'm good at appreciating that type of stuff.
Well, exactly. How many times have you sent me a message this year like, oh, player XYZ missed a home run. If he hits that home run, I go from 27th to second place, and I go from winning 300 to 15 grand. And it's like, yeah, that sucks. It's too bad it didn't leave the park. But then you look at it when you do win and you remember, well, all right, like that was really nice that he missed that ball by a matter of a foot. And it is the ebb and flow of the situation. And it's important to remember that there are times that you win big, or oftentimes you're getting a little bit lucky. But this is also like your fourth or fifth time having a night like this in baseball this year. So over the long term, it's a skill game. But in any given slate, there's a lot of luck involved in it. I mean, that's the way that things are. We already brought up like your basketball win, like my football win from week 1 last year. I didn't even really correlate it until I rethought about it. I was like, well, shit, like there was 9 other people in the top 10 of this contest that were within like 8 points of me. And like one of those guys had David Johnson. You know, it was lucky that a chalky David Johnson got hurt in the second quarter. Now, it killed my year-long leagues because I had him all over the place. But still, like that specific day, there was a lot of luck involved in it.
Yeah, and that's just how I guess the cookie crumbles. It's exciting. So we'll run with this, and who knows what other videos we'll make. But we're around. I know I'm around all day, questions, all that stuff. So I'm hearing from all you guys. I really appreciate all the, congratulations and all that stuff. It really means a lot. Really appreciate everyone reaching out.
So, I mean, that's that, guys. Sign up to be a member. Except, we're not going to sit here and tell you that you're going to win every single night. We're not the fanciest service out there. We do a whole bunch of podcasts, and then we do a lot of private ones for just our paying customers. And we don't have, rankings and, or an optimizer or anything like that that's super fancy, but we will do a summary each day. And for those of you who get off of work and have about 15 minutes to set a DFS lineup, it's probably going to be better for you because you can listen to the show in your car, or you can skip it and just read the summary at the end of the day about who to play and who not to play. If you want to be good at DFS, like you do have to put time into it. And a lot of you guys just don't have time to do that because you have jobs, you have wives, you have kids, and whatever it might be that goes along with it. We try to consolidate the process for your average ho-hum player who just wants to play and have some fun at the end of a long day and try to be more successful instead of having to deposit money every single week.
That's a great point. And yeah, it's what we pride ourselves on. So we'll want to continue to grow and keep pumping out info. I know football only a couple days away. Well, actually football tonight, so I'm excited just to watch that game.
All right. We've kept you guys long enough. Thanks for watching. We'll see you guys soon.
Thanks, guys.